What's up, Change the Channel podcast listeners? My name is Megan Grace, and this is another episode of Change the Channel podcast. Welcome back to the show. On today's episode, I am so excited to introduce you to someone that is very special to me. His name is Blake Booker, and he is an activist, brilliant mind, hilarious human with just so many perspectives on all types of things. He also is one of my partners and makes me grin a lot. And so I wanted to record this episode because after the Kendrick halftime show, I was listening to it and I was like, okay, I want to know what Blake thinks about this because he grew up in California. He's an Ebony individual. He's got all sorts of different life perspectives than I do. So I was like, this is entertaining to watch. But I also feel like there's deeper meanings. And so we had what I will say is probably one of my favorite dates, sat down and he just broke it down in all these different parts and pieces. And I feel like it's important to hear. So thanks for being on the show, babe.
Oh, well, thank you.
Gee shucks.
Gee shucks.
Gee shucks.
You're important to me too.
Oh, yeah. Love it. Yeah, so we're just going to kind of just chat about it a little bit. I actually told him right before this that I don't plan things. We just talk because Change the Channel is all about moving past perfection and just being in the moment and listening to what comes up. So
this is live right now.
This is live.
So whatever I say right now is going to end up in the show. I got to do it. You know me.
You got to do it.
Me.
Yeah.
Why did the toilet paper not cross the road?
Oh, that's a good question.
It got stuck in a crack.
Oh, no.
It's going to be in the episode.
It's going to be in the episode. So meet Blake, the king of the dad jokes of... Yes. This is important. Activism, dad jokes, dancing, being all the things. Cool. So, okay, babe. So let's get into the topic. Right. So when you were watching the halftime show, Kendrick's halftime show, I remember when we first started it out, I mean, we hardly even played even the tiniest bit of it, and you're like, Do you know why this is important? Do you know why this car is important? Do you know those things?
Yeah. And oh man, I totally even forgot about that. So there's always these things that will symbolize for like marginalized communities that you may have made it, and you might not be able to have the best. But you can earn this one thing that might be within your means, right? It could be a pair of Jordans. It could be a chain. For a lot of people, West Coast, East Coast, the Grand National was the deal, which is what Kendrick's album is named after. And just to take a second to talk about how deeply like he thinks about everything that he's doing. He released that Grand National, his album, on the same day that the Grand National was actually released. And then there was a time period in which a few months after, they released a special edition, like fully tricked out Grand National, like Supreme, basically like the model. But you could only get it for a limited time period. Between these, I think it was like October 9th, something like that, is when it dropped. But that symbolized to everybody based on when he released it that he would likely be releasing a second part of the album, of which he did a lot of those songs at the Super Bowl, which is really dope. So yeah, the Grand National became this thing like the 72 Monte Carlo with the swivel seats. like a Cadillac, Coupe de Ville, a status of having been able to make it and do well for yourself, right? So yeah, there becomes that thing for the car itself that just represents in itself the ability to make it and to make lemonade out of your lemons, while also pointing out the stark difference and generational wealth and the ability, lack thereof, the ability to do that. Generations of youth that in turn have to then take care of their parents, as opposed to their parents being able to provide a path for them. So yeah, it kind of speaks to a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I just remember you're like, do you know about this car? I'm like, no. I'm like, we just started the performance.
Oh, this car is bad.
Yeah.
This car right here is dope. The Grand National, yeah. It's a dope one. And then they had everybody basically pile out of the cars, which, even just kind of thinking about it now, and these are just kind of like my some of them are my interpretations of things.
We love your interpretations of things. That's the point, babe.
But if you ain't always had the means, you had to share a lot of things, right? And whether it was hand-me-down clothes and shoes, and bath water, like it could be any number of things. But sharing vehicles, anybody who could figure out a way to get a ride to the party or to the thing in the car, they was all piling in the car because everybody didn't have it. For us, even when we would go to like the beach, we had always had vehicles, but a lot of our friends didn't have vehicles. So our parents would actually allow me and my brothers each to choose a friend to take with. So we would like take a friend with who maybe wouldn't get the opportunity to go other than that. So yeah, so having everybody piled into a car in itself was I felt like some type of symbolism in itself.
Yeah, it felt that way too.
Yeah. And then you had everybody pile out, and constantly throughout the performance, you have two things that he's doing simultaneously. Because what we do is we look at small communities or small pockets of society, and we look at them and we think, oh, this is an outlier. Realistically, they're microcosms of society as a whole.
Whew.
Right? So
okay.
So this is why whenever something's going on in the world, it plays out on the sports stage, right? When women's rights are being taken away, and Megan Rapinoe takes a knee, right? Colin Kaepernick takes a knee, the fist in the air at the Olympics during the Civil Rights Movement, right? It's not just these individuals, right?
It's a representation of something else.
Because they're also, like all of us, a part of society. That becomes apparent in me because it depends on what you see. He made this album for California. But for some things, if you know. But the thing is that regardless of whether you understand California culture and dances and all the movements and the fact that he sampled all of our old music that we used to like skate to at the skating ring to make this album and everything, you understand still what you're seeing. And what I mean is we see red, blue, and white, and we might see Crips and Bloods, and then we see the neutral color. Clearly also the same colors of the flag, right? So this small pocket of what is happening in Compton, California, and any number of other neighborhoods also is something that happens not only on a nationwide scale, but on a global scale. From how the country were formed, and colonization and all the other things that are happening, and people teaming up and all the other weird stuff that basically just goes on. So you see that happening over and over again. There is a section right after the intro song in which, of course, he's delivering his early messages the same way that XXXTentacion delivers his cipher, where he's bent down. So he's making a lot of reference to that. And this is kind of like the main thing that people focused on. There's been a lot of people who've kind of talked about these things, but the fact that Drake's into some weird stuff, and a lot of people believe that Drake is responsible for XXXTentacion's murder. Mm-hmm. So he references that more than a few times.
Yeah.
Is that gonna come through on the mic?
It might come through on the mic. Right, cool. I don't know.
You know, if you didn't, I just belched. All right. We ate fun before this. For crying out loud.
For crying out loud. You be belching and shit, talking about important stuff.
Yeah. I felt it deep.
I know, right?
So, so a lot of people believe that he is responsible for that. In fact, XXXTentacion actually had released a statement and said, if I die, Drake did it. And then he retracted that statement later on. So him acting as X, and then having the two of Drake's X's on the stage.
Yeah.
And then the single X was a whole thing as well. But the stories all go deeper than that. So from how he delivered his message itself, and then following that, I realized that on the stage was all women dressed in red.
Yeah. Oh, I remember specifically that part. Really, like, yeah. It hit both of us a lot when you were saying it.
Yeah. So it had like, we see colors of the flag, and then we see kind of a little bit of the flag kind of forming, but not quite there. And you see only women on the stage dressed all in red. And we know what the red means in the flag. We know what the red means in the games as well. Yeah. Blood is what it represents for all those things. And it reminded me of a quote that says, if not for the blood of a woman, none of us would be here. So yeah. So we have that. So what we're discussing is birth, right? We're discussing, the pain of a woman. We're discussing all the things happening with women's rights, right? And then we go right back into, again, the nation as a whole again, because right after that, the American flag is what is born from that, which brings up birth of a nation. So yeah. So for me, you start thinking over and over again, he's showing simultaneously all of these things, because at the same time that he's showing the pain that we're currently going through, he's also showing how we got here, right? Remember MLK talking about, at first they came from my brother, right? And said nothing. It came from my sister and said nothing. And then it came from me. Nobody else was left. So we have the pain that we're going through right now, and rights being taken away and all these different things. Goes right back to the birth of a nation. And for anybody that doesn't know what birth of a nation is, the movie's trash is what it is. You don't really need to go watch it. But it was built on the premise of what a free ebony man would do if not under the thumb of the law and under the the rule of being a slave and whatnot, in which a freed black man would go to do harm to a white woman, and the KKK comes to the rescue, and thus the overcriminalization and everything that we have since has rolled out. So they form a flag and give us images of birth of a nation, directly leading to Samuel L. Jackson basically saying that they're too loud.
Yeah. Calm down.
Ghetto,
You're not playing the game.
You're not playing the game the right way, right? Conforming to social standards, not from within our culture, but from the colonizers. So yeah, he speaks to that, and that's referenced more than a few times. So we see Serena Williams, and we see Sia out there, and we think, okay, Drake's exes. This is just what it's about. But Serena Williams actually sea-walking on the stage had a lot more to do with the overall message than with just Drake. The first time that she sea-walked in public, I verified this a little bit ago, that it was at Wimbledon when she won the Olympic match. She sea-walked in celebration. And they said, she shouldn't be representing the country like that. And, this is horrible. And she's ghetto and all these different things, right? A lot of boo. So again, to come back forward and have her sea-walking on this stage again, following Sam Jackson doing that, and then Kendrick breaking in to Be Humble, Sit Down, being a whole thing. And we see it show up in everything. How we're ridiculed. Everything. I think one of the most threatening things to folks, it becomes oddly enough, and it is saying for everybody, but for those that aren't, I don't know, good faith actors, sucky people. Yeah. To sucky people. Ebony Joy is a problem. It could be laughing, it could be dancing, it could be singing, it could be happy about a movie, Black Panther, coming out that shows people in royalty and looking fabulous and doing the whole thing and having an Ebony cast and people coming, Wakanda's not real. That's a horrible.
I don't want to live in a world where Wakanda's not real. Yeah, I don't want to live in that world.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
T'Challa's definitely real.
Indeed. Facts. Big facts.
So we see that happen over and over again. Where they basically are not allowing us to be ourselves.
But
processes of masking, what were you going to?
Well, you had also mentioned too that it's not even just you can't be yourself and you can't bring that forward, but then someone that's white decides to do the same thing later. Yeah. And then it's well, this is dope. This is awesome. This is whatever.
Yeah. There's that. What's crazy is it's on an episode of The Office, when Dwight is building, and Dwight Schrute is building. Hey, who would think that I would have a reference from Dwight Schrute in this moment talking about this serious topic?
I told you, brilliant mind.
I grab information from everywhere, but he put it perfectly when he was trying to build Dwight Schrute's Gym for Muscles in The Office. And he said he was hell-bent on trying to get Daryl, the lone Ebony man in The Office, to work out at his gym. And he was like, why are you trying to get him in his gym? And he says, everybody knows if you want your business to be successful, you have to get the black people to do it first. And then that'll make the white people start wanting to do it. And you get the black people to stop doing it.
Damn.
So I mean, you look around you, I don't know how many taco shops can you have not owned by somebody in the Latinx community? You know, how many yoga studios can we have? There's nobody from that culture in it, and that's what America does. I mean, and I know it's not something that's just synonymous with America, but this is where we live, where we want the culture, but we don't want the people that brought the culture. And it becomes a real problem.
Yeah, it becomes dangerous. It becomes dangerous. Mm-hmm. And it also becomes a thing where I mean, as a white person, even looking at it and being like, this is so interesting. This is so cool. This is so whatever. And not realizing even that sometimes it's like, oh, we're enjoying and borrowing something, but that might be art that's come out of a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And it's important.
Yeah. It's important, and I think that also not to just stay at a loss, because most people will hear that, most allies would hear that and be like, oh, well, I don't want to appropriate this thing. Remember that appropriation has a lot to do with monetization, which is the thing that always gets left out. So
say more on that.
Right. So again, we start talking about the creations, the things that have come from these highly creative people and minds and things, books written and creations that we still use today, stoplights, everything, the things that happen.
The pyramids.
The pyramids. Son of a bitch. Can I say that on here?
Yes, you can. Yes, we can. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I told you, it's the best.
Whatever I say.
Whatever you say.
Okay. So yeah, when you start talking about all the things that are created, and then credit not given. And then what ends up happening is it becomes popular. And then once it's time to monetize, just as it's always been, to start that business, it becomes impossible, damn near impossible, for somebody, Ebony, to do that.
Yeah.
But then you have someone who is not of color do it, and boom, they're on the morning show. Right. And we it happens in small ways. It happens in big ways. When we look on the sports stage and we see a Ebony player after getting a first down or touchdown celebrating, they say, act like you've been there before. And then Aaron Rodgers gets a first down and he does the discount double check and he gets a nationwide commercial out of it. Right. So monetization being the thing. So go ahead and get your braids, okay?
Okay.
But make sure you go ahead and get your box braids, and make sure you go to somebody, Ebony, to do it.
And tip well.
Yeah.
And tip well.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a little off topic of the halftime show, but I really loved when you explained to me why you choose to use the word ebony.
Oh yeah.
Will you talk about that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I use a couple of them. I use ebony, which is tried and true, and then I also like melanin rich. Realizing why race is a thing, being this created thing, and being this thing that was literally created for oppression.
Exactly.
And marginalization. You look at I want to say it was 1862. If you look at Webster's dictionary, look at the word American, it referred to the copper-colored natives of this land. And then post 1862, or when this dictionary was out, that word was then co-opted, and then now American refers to the white settlers who are here. And then what has happened since is at every point that America has been called to answer for the sins of their fathers, they tighten up so that it doesn't become a thing where they have to pay anybody, right?
Back to the monetization.
Yeah, exactly. So we have like the Japanese internment camps,
The reservations.
and reservations, the payouts for those things. And what they did post all of these things is redo the census. And this is a lot of our parents, and a lot of the confusion that people have about what to call my people came from this time period. Because in order to be native, you had to be connected to one of the 4 recognized tribes. And then, you go through everything and you get to black. And what it literally just says is that you are from somewhere else. You are from, if you look like you're from Africa. Despite the fact that we know that when the Americas were first populated heavily by people from Russia, Asia, and Africa. There are ebony people on this land. If there weren't people of other colors and tones on this land, you wouldn't have a need to define the Americans as the copper-colored natives of the land. So the biggest hack that America has had is that they just tell us we're from somewhere else. And by being from somewhere else, in which we can't really, it's real hard to do the 23 and try to build our tree, because eventually it gets to, you might have been owned by this person. You might have been owned by this person. You got no claim to anything on this land. You got no claim to anything that could lead to reparations and real reparations, right? You don't have any claim to anything. For it to be native, you have to be part of the 4 recognized tribes. That means there's other tribes.
Yeah.
That means there's other tribes. At the same time, we're supposed to believe that a group of Mayan people with wide noses and locks like mine just up and walked away one day. We don't know where they went. We don't know where they went.
Golly gee whiz, we've had a good time.
So yeah, what I choose when you go back to when that census was created, largely civil rights era happening, you could not call our grandparents black. You couldn't call our parents black. Afro-American is what they chose at the time, because they weren't also using African American, because there's no holds and connections to anything on that land, right? We have a lot of rules from slavery, not being able to read and all the other stuff that was happening during that time period. But I've never heard of a rule that we can't pass down stories about who we are, where we're from, and our culture from Africa, and traditions that we picked up. How come very few of us have anything like that, right? So it's
probably because then they'd know Wakanda was real.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that nobody came from Africa. What I'm saying is that we only have part of the story. Yeah. Right? Out here in Oregon, there is a thing called the specimen. And it is a fossilized piece of human excrement. Poop. Poop is what I'm talking about, audience. I'm talking about poop on the podcast.
We started with toilet paper. We've made our way here. It's connected.
Right? Man, I love a good transition. Set up and knock them down. So that fossilized piece of poop shows that before anybody lived on any land that is now considered Oregon, or considered the United States, someone has lived or populated this land here. And that poop is Asian of descent. So...
no shit.
Who is here?
Yeah.
Who wasn't here? When are we drawing the line back to? When are we looking to, right? Yeah. I mean, again, not to get too far off topics, but we talking about drawing lines and then telling people on land that used to be Mexico that they're now crossing a border. Yeah. What? I lived here.
I know, right? You told me to go home. I'm just trying.
I put that tree right there. Now it's on the other side of your stupid fence. Yeah. So, yeah, at what point does it become illegal to walk into the land that you used to be in? So, I don't know. There's a lot of things we talked about.
Yeah. But so with the word ebony, does ebony hold something different than these?
Yeah. Because black in itself just means that you are from Africa. And I'm not denying those roots because we know all people have come from Africa
Indeed.
at some point, right? Ebony is royal. Ebony is
yes, it
deep.
is.
It describes a people. It's a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Black has been brought up to really quite possibly everything negative.
Yeah, it's true.
You got a white lie. It's the opposite of a white lie. This is it's a lesser lie, right?
Yeah,
Black
yeah,
magic.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Black is negative, right? You know? So yeah, it becomes a whole thing. So to say melanin rich or ebony, for me, is empowering.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I feel it, like the resonance, even when you say it out loud, and I can see it on your face, and I can see it in your posture. It's almost like this, like hearkening, like reminding yourself of your royalty. And I love it. I've been trying to like introduce and use that more as well, because even saying it out loud, it brings back, it brings up different images, which is important, because even on this whole podcast, like Change the Channel is all about getting out of, the rut of ways of thinking, or even like the same words, and knowing what association goes with those words and what somatically comes up in your body when you hear them. Okay, like, especially as white-bodied people, like, if we're continuing to rehearse and sing the same song basically over and over again, but we say that we want to be part of shifting and changing things, whatever, it's important the language that we use. And it's important the language that we use and how it feels to, like, in us, and how it feels to others too. So I loved when you I think you broke that down over pho too. And I was like, shit, everything comes back to pho.
Everything comes down on pho. But yeah, topics get deep. And ideas like the Kendrick Lamar performance, which, we still haven't even gone through all of it.
It's true.
But it gets deep, and it starts with using the same language, the same coded language, right? So I actually recommend, in terms of just racial things, Vanderbilt University put together an amazing list defining racial terms. I always recommend anybody that I'm gonna have a conversation with, go and read that.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people don't have any ideas about, realistically, stuff that gets used all the time, right? The term racist and what that actually means. Most people think it means something that has to do with hate or anger. Truth is, it has nothing to do with that. It's easier to spot when it has hate and anger in a white hood. But it has nothing to do with that at all. So I invite everybody to go read that. Vanderbilt University, racial key terms. You type that into Google, it'll pop up.
I might just find the link and put it in the show notes.
That'd be dope.
Make it easier.
Just disregard everything I said. Just click right there.
You know what? You can go and do some research too, but sometimes it'd be nice to have a thing to click.
A link.
Just a link.
A link. Technology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. What?
But yeah, I think there was a lot that was going on. But yeah, he made reference to our country. I mean, a lot of stuff was again, multi-meaning, right? So we had the X on the field because it's part of the Sony PlayStation controller, in which he puts in the code for infinite life at the beginning for GTA, which is pretty cool. Says game over at the end of the performance. The XXX Temptation, because two X's and then the X. But then when he goes in to squabbling up, they're standing in that X, which obviously Twitter is now X, right? And we have the commander-in-chief in attendance at the Super Bowl. And what he does is he slows it down for a second, and he goes directly from that X, and then he goes into a snake formation.
Yeah, the snake formation.
to me, literally just saying that the head of the snake is not even our president, but this guy behind the scenes who's basically controlling, which he did that at that time. And that was before this. Before Elon Musk got all his powers and positions and all the other stuff or whatever that he was just kind of doing. So it's been, he put a lot of symbolism in there, and it was absolutely amazing performance for sure.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That's dope.
What else you got?
Well, I'm trying to remember some of the other things. Oh, okay. So we're gonna go all the way back to the beginning again because we've really unpacked some stuff. At least when we're talking first, like you were sharing about the colors and all of what that meant too, and I thought that was so important because it, again, back to the whole idea of if you're someone that's not from a neighborhood or not from a group, you can look at it and completely misrepresent and then act out in ways that can be harmful to that community because you just don't know what it is.
Definitely.
We talk on that, babe? That was cool.
Yeah. So in the neighborhoods, you had a lot of colors meant a lot of different things as well, right? So you had the Bloods, you had the Crips, you had the Kings, you had almost every color meant something. But no matter what, same as on the national level, international, white is neutral. White becomes this neutral thing. So, if you wanted to show that you weren't connected to any gangs or anything like that, what you were left to wear was white tees. So it became a style, and it became a thing, which is funny. Now, again, which we'll get to in a second, I'll say why it's funny. But it became a thing out of necessity, but also just like that Grand National, a mark of I'm doing something dope, something to be celebrated. Clean white tee, clean white shoes, Air Forces.
Yeah.
Right? Becomes a thing.
Lakers in 5.
Right? Exactly. So it becomes a thing to have the clean white tee, have them things bleached up, have them clean, don't drink no Kool-Aid without... Make sure you don't spill on your shirt out here looking like a fool. No, but it became a thing. But it also became a thing because we are policed by communities who also don't understand us. That they thought those were gang colors. So they started banning white tees from the places that we frequented. Skating rings, malls, all these things. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, wearing this because I'm not in a gang, right? So it definitely was a thing.
Yeah, because I feel like even in the performance, like there were pockets of time where the white t-shirts was important. Like even the group of people that were like sitting around the light post and and then being sort of shooed away and then
So he had the and I wondered this if at the beginning when they're on the staircase, because we have the birth of the nation and there's just the guys who are in white right there, and they're just innocent, they're playing and they're just having a good time.
Joy.
Almost like children.
Yeah.
So like when we're first born, because we have the birth of a nation, we just have like very childlike characters there. So wearing the white, those same people are then referenced when he goes around the light post. And I didn't realize this at first. I kept watching and I was like, this is weird. And I realized that when he's at the light post, all of those are all dead homies. Yeah. So yeah, he has the one guy up on top too. But yeah, all of them are dead homies. And then he comes over, Samuel L. Jackson comes over after, and he goes, hanging with the homies, good, best way to build your street cred, basically. Referencing Drake in that moment. But then he says, deduct one life. XXX Tentacion. Right. So yeah, he was this man is deep. He's just got so many. He's just hit you with so much stuff at the same time. So yeah.
So much stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too is that it was all entertaining, but also like deeply meaningful.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's got good people around him too.
Like
or
Mustard?
He just maps out everything because I mean, it's one thing to try and shape in and hone in. I've done that. You get ready to do a performance and you be like, I want to do this. I want to do this. And be like, no, we can't do all this. You gotta, you gotta like, no, there's a way that you can make this image happen. You got to figure out how to make it happen. Right. We don't know how long Serena Williams was out on the stage.
Right.
We saw when they cut to her, but I imagine that she was out there from the very beginning of that song. So, yeah, I don't know, just out there walking it out. And then eventually they caught her on camera, but yeah.
I know. Yeah, that was crazy about the Wimbledon thing.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking about it, babe.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate you.
That's it?
I mean,
you're talking about some other stuff.
Well, I don't know.
Maybe next time.
This is the fun part of it being live, but I kind of feel, I feel like it's important to sit with all of this because again, like, my hope in this conversation, especially because like a lot of the people that listen to this show, are my friends. Shout out to all of you. Thank you for listening. We love that. And I know that we had conversations of just being like, wait, I don't fully understand that. I want to know more. I want to and I don't know the questions to ask all the time. I think people don't always know the questions to ask. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be asking questions and trying, and doing research and expanding, expanding who we are, and making space again to be, like an active listener because that's also important to be able to sit back, take in the show, realize that there are parts and pieces that, are not designed for us, as white bodied people, or maybe even people that just didn't grow up in California. But I just really appreciate you sharing this stuff.
Yeah. Every day is my favorite thing to say is that every day learn something new. Yesterday's knowledge should not be today's. I know I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. And I hope that I don't recognize myself 5 years from now. I want to know more. I want to grow more. Marginalized communities that we don't even think about because they don't necessarily have the voice, right? Little people out here. We were talking about this. Nobody's thinking about this at all, right? Why are they having to struggle with the same doors that we're struggling with?
Yeah.
Why are no chairs in the restaurant? Right for it.
I know, or public toilets too.
Public toilets.
Yeah.
Hey, nobody's thinking about it, so nobody is caring to invest the money to think about these people. So I like to think about groups outside of my own as well. And I always want to learn, I always want to grow. And at the bare minimal, what anybody can do, not even the minimal. When you think you're doing a little, you're really doing the most because it's the most important when it comes time for what Kendrick Lamar started his whole performance with saying, is that the revolution is coming, right? And to do that, you need people to be activated. And in order to be activated, you need knowledge. So the best thing that anybody can do is educate yourselves. Pick a topic, education, housing, red light, right? Look at the history of all of these things, right? And then go from policing, right? The history of which, how we go, like the criminal justice system, how it actually looks, and step outside of your box, right? And look at all of these things and educate yourself. and then pass that knowledge on to someone else. Every time you learn something, pass it on to somebody else. Learn something, pass it on to somebody else. If you have no time to go down to a march or anything else, that information, we live in an age of information. Things that I read, scholarly papers and books about have now been turned into documentaries and now have been turned into 2-minute or 30-second, like minute, reels. 20-second little reels on Instagram, right? That information is out there. If you're seeking it, you will find an endless amount of it. So yeah, educate yourself and then pass that information on to other people because change has to happen. Every great nation there ever has been has pulled itself apart from inside, usually based around racial issues and racial tensions. So yeah, we're
doing a pretty decent job of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd say allies are good, accomplices are better.
That part. Cool.
Indeed.
Thanks, babe.
Hey.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. I'm gonna put some links in the show notes to be able to look at the dictionary that you had referenced or the terms, so we can all start using the same terms when we're talking about things. And feel free to use the word ebony because ebony is a beautiful word. We added that. And yeah, thanks so much for being here, for listening to another episode of Change the Channel podcast.